The city screamed around me, a chaotic symphony of honking cabs and chattering crowds, but his voice cut through it like a blade. "Pretty boy, you lost?" Officer Liam's hazel eyes locked onto mine, sharp and unyielding, as if he could see every secret I'd buried. I froze, my heart slamming against my ribs, because no one had ever looked at me like that on a New York street corner at dusk. I was just Ezra Kane, a 22-year-old art school dropout scraping by, dodging rent collectors and painting murals on abandoned buildings to feel alive. That evening, I'd been weaving through Manhattan's Lower East Side, my sketchbook tucked under my arm, when I noticed him, a cop, broad-shouldered, mid-30s, standing by a bodega with a presence that demanded attention. His uniform was crisp, his badge glinting under the streetlights, but it was his gaze that stopped me cold. Not judgmental, not cruel, but curious. Hungry, almost. I'd smirked, ready to brush past with my usual defiance, when he stepped closer and said those words. "Pretty boy." The phrase hung in the air, teasing, dangerous, like a spark near gasoline. "You deaf, kid?" he asked, his voice low, a faint southern drawl softening the edges. He leaned in, close enough for me to catch the scent of his cologne, sandalwood, sharp and warm. "I said you lost. Or are you just looking for trouble?" His lips twitched, not quite a smile, and I felt the ground shift beneath me. Trouble? Oh, I was born for it, but this was a different kind. The kind that made my pulse race and my mouth dry, because Officer Liam wasn't just any cop. He was a question mark in a uniform, and I was already too curious for my own good. I tilted my chin up, meeting his gaze. "Not lost," I said, voice steadier than I felt. "Just passing through." "You got a problem with that, officer?" I let the word drip with just enough edge to test him. His eyes narrowed, but there was something else there. Amusement, maybe, or something heavier. He didn't back off. Instead, he stepped closer, his boots scuffing the pavement, and that's when he whispered it, his breath warm against my ear. "Walk away now, or stay and make a choice you can't take back." My knees nearly buckled. A choice? What the hell did that mean? My life was already a mess of bad decisions. Quitting school, burning bridges with my family, falling for people who never stuck around. But this stranger, this cop, was offering me something I couldn't name, and it terrified me as much as it thrilled me. I should have walked away. I should have laughed it off and disappeared into the crowd. But I didn't. I stayed, staring into those hazel eyes, and said, "What kind of choice?" Liam's jaw tightened, like he hadn't expected me to call his bluff. He glanced around, quick, subtle, like he was checking for witnesses, then leaned in again. "Meet me at the diner on 7th Street in an hour. Alone. Or don't." And we never crossed paths again. His voice was steady, but his eyes betrayed him. There was a storm there, a crack in his composed exterior. Then he turned and walked away, his broad back disappearing into the sea of people, leaving me standing there, shaking, with a decision I wasn't ready to make. I wandered the streets for the next half hour, my mind a war zone. Who was this guy? Some cop playing power games? Or something else entirely? I'd grown up in a world that taught me to hide who I was, small-town Ohio, where being openly by got you whispers at best, fists at worst. I come to New York to escape that, to be free, but freedom came with its own risks. Like standing on a street corner, debating whether to meet a stranger who just turned my world upside down with a single whisper. The diner on 7th was a neon-lit relic, all chrome and red vinyl booths, smelling of coffee and fried onions. I slid into a corner booth at 7:58 p.m., my sketchbook on the table, my leg bouncing under it. I told myself I was just curious, that I could leave any time. But when Liam walked in, out of uniform now, in a fitted black sweater and jeans, his hair slightly mussed, he didn't look like a cop anymore. He looked like a man who carried secrets heavier than mine. He slid into the booth across from me, his eyes scanning my face like he was memorizing it. "You came," he said, voice softer now, almost surprised. "Didn't think you would." "Yeah, well, I'm full of bad ideas." I shot back, trying to keep it light, but my heart was pounding. "So what's this choice you're talking about?" He leaned forward, elbows on the table, and for a moment, the diner faded away. The clatter of dishes, the hum of conversation, all gone. It was just us. "I'm not who you think I am, Ezra," he said, my name rolling off his tongue like he'd practiced it. "And you're not just some kid with a sketchbook. I see you, the real you. And I'm giving you a chance to see me, too. But it's not safe, and it's not simple." I laughed, nervous, disbelieving. "You don't even know me." "I know enough," he said, and there was that hunger again, in his eyes, his voice. "I've watched you. The murals you paint on those crumbling walls. The way you move through this city like you're daring it to break you. I know you're running from something, just like I am." My breath caught. How the hell did he know about my murals? I'd been careful, painting under cover of night, never signing my work. Was he stalking me? Or was this something else, something bigger? I wanted to bolt, but his gaze held me there, pinning me like a butterfly to a board. "What do you want from me?" I asked, barely above a whisper. Liam's hand slid across the table, stopping just short of mine. "I want you to trust me," he said. "But first, you need to know what you're getting into. I'm not just a cop. I'm complicated. And if you're in deep." The waitress came by, breaking the spell, and I ordered a coffee just to have something to do with my hands. Liam didn't order anything. He just watched me, waiting. I could have left then, walked back into my chaotic, lonely life. But I didn't, because for the first time in years, someone saw me. Not the sarcastic street kid, not the failure, but me. And that was enough to make me stay. We talked for hours, the diner emptying around us. Liam told me fragments of his story. Not enough to piece it all together, but enough to know he was hiding something big. He'd grown up in Georgia, joined the force young, climbed the ranks. But there was a shadow in his voice when he mentioned his past, like he was running from it as much as I was running from mine. He didn't say he was queer, not outright, but the way his eyes lingered on me, the way his voice softened when he said my name, it was there unspoken, electric. By the time we left the diner, it was past midnight, and the city felt different, like it was holding its breath. Liam walked me to my subway stop, his shoulder brushing mine. "Think about it," he said, his voice low. "If you want in, meet me here tomorrow night. If you don't, I won't come looking." I nodded, too overwhelmed to speak. As the train rattled me back to my tiny apartment in Brooklyn, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd just stepped onto a path I couldn't turn back from. Liam wasn't just a cop. He wasn't just a man. He was a door to something I didn't understand yet, and I was already halfway through it. The next night, I was back at the subway stop, my sketchbook clutched like a shield. I told myself I was just curious that I could still walk away. But when Liam appeared, same black sweater, same intense gaze, my resolve crumbled like chalk. He didn't smile, didn't say much, just nodded toward a side street and started walking. I followed, my sneakers scuffing the pavement, the city's pulse syncing with my own. We ended up at a dive bar, the kind with sticky floors and a jukebox that hadn't been updated since the 90s. Liam slid into a booth in the back, away from prying eyes, and I sat across from him, feeling like I was auditioning for a role I didn't understand. "You're here," he said, his voice low, like he was still surprised. "That's step one." "Step one of what?" I asked, leaning forward, my elbows on the table. "You keep talking in riddles, man. If you're trying to scare me off, it's not working." He chuckled, a deep, warm sound that made my stomach flip. "Not trying to scare you, Ezra. Trying to protect you." He paused, his fingers tracing the edge of his beer bottle. "I'm part of something bigger than the Force. Something that could get us both in trouble if you're not careful." I raised an eyebrow, half expecting a punchline. "What, like some secret cop club? Undercover stuff?" "Something like that," he said, but his eyes darkened. "I can't tell you everything yet. Not until I know you're all in. But I'll give you this. I'm working to take down some bad people. Powerful people. And I think you can help." "Me?" I laughed, disbelieving. "I'm nobody, Liam. I paint walls and dodge bills. What can I possibly do for you?" He leaned closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. "You see things others don't. Your art, it's not just graffiti. It's a map of this city's underbelly. You know, the streets, the people, the places no one else notices. I need that. I need you. My breath hitched. No one had ever called my murals anything but vandalism. To hear Liam talk about them like they mattered, like I mattered, lit something inside me I hadn't felt in years. Hope, maybe, or something more dangerous. And what do I get out of it? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Answers, he said simply. A purpose, and maybe something more. His eyes flicked to my lips, just for a second, but it was enough to send a jolt through me. I wanted to ask what he meant, but the air between us was too charged, too fragile. I let it hang. Over the next hour, he fed me bits and pieces. Nothing concrete, just enough to keep me hooked. He was part of an off-the-books operation, he said, targeting corruption in the city's elite. Cops, politicians, businessmen, the kind of people who thought they were untouchable. He needed someone outside the system, someone like me, to gather intel in places he couldn't go. It sounded insane, like something out of a movie, but the way he looked at me made it real. Made it personal. By the time we left the bar, my head was spinning. Liam walked me to my subway stop again, his hand brushing mine as we navigated the crowded sidewalk. Think it over, he said, his voice soft but firm. This isn't a game, Ezra. If you're in, you're risking everything. But if you're out, we're done. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on my lumpy mattress, staring at the sketches littering my apartment. Half-finished portraits of strangers, cityscapes that screamed with color and chaos. Liam was right. I saw things others didn't. The old man selling flowers who whispered secrets to his customers. The alley where deals went down under flickering streetlights. I'd spent years watching, painting, surviving. Could I really use that to help him? And what was this something more he'd hinted at? The next day, I found myself back on the Lower East Side, painting a new mural, a faceless figure in a uniform, standing under a neon sky. I didn't know if it was Liam or me, but it felt like both of us, caught in something bigger than ourselves. My phone buzzed as I worked, a text from an unknown number, 7th Street. 8 p.m., don't be late. My heart skipped. It was him. I showed up at the diner again, my hands still smudged with paint. Liam was already there, in a gray hoodie this time, looking less like a cop and more like a man carrying the weight of the world. You're in, he said, not a question. I nodded, my throat tight. I'm in. He slid a burner phone across the table, its screen cracked but functional. This is how we talk from now on. No names, no traces. You'll go where I can't, clubs, warehouses, places where people talk too much. You listen, you watch, you report back. That's it. And if I get caught? I asked, my voice sharper than I meant it to be. You won't, he said, but his eyes didn't meet mine. I'll make sure of it. That was the moment I realized how deep this went. Liam wasn't just asking me to spy. He was asking me to trust him with my life. And I was already too far gone to say no. Not because of the mission, but because of him. The way he looked at me, like I was more than a kid with a spray can. Like I could be something bigger. We spent the next week meeting in secret. Alleys, empty lots, anywhere we wouldn't be seen. He taught me how to blend in, how to listen without looking like I was listening. I started noticing things I'd never seen before. The way a club bouncer nodded to certain people. The way cash changed hands in broad daylight. I fed Liam scraps of information, and he gave me scraps of himself in return. A story about his first arrest, a scar on his knuckles from a fight he wouldn't explain. Every moment with him felt like a brushstroke, painting a picture I couldn't quite see yet. But it wasn't just the mission pulling me in. It was the way his hand lingered when he passed me the burner phone, the way his voice softened when he said my name. I'd spent years hiding who I was, afraid to want too much. But with Liam, I wanted everything. The city became my canvas in a new way, not just for paint, but for secrets. Liam had me slipping into underground clubs and smoky backrooms, places where the city's pulse beat loudest. I was his eyes and ears, a shadow in ripped jeans and a leather jacket, sketching faces and overhearing deals. Every night, I'd meet him in some forgotten corner of Manhattan to pass along what I'd learned. Names, places, whispers of corruption that made my skin crawl. But it was his presence, steady, intense, always watching me, that kept me grounded even as the stakes climbed higher. One night, I was in a warehouse club in Bushwick, the air thick with sweat and bass. The burner phone buzzed in my pocket. VIP room. Guy in the red suit. Listen, I spotted him, a slick businessman, mid-40s, with a smile like a shark. He was talking to a councilman, their heads bent close, tossing around names of cops and judges like they were trading baseball cards. I scribbled notes in my sketchbook, disguising them as doodles, my heart pounding as I realized how deep this went. These weren't just crooks. They were the kind of people who ran the city. I met Liam later in an alley behind a laundromat, the hum of dryers masking our voices. I handed him my notes, my fingers brushing his. He scanned them, his jaw tight. "This is big, Ezra," he said, his voice low. "Bigger than I thought. You did good." "Yeah." I grinned, trying to play it cool, but his praise lit me up inside. "So what's next, boss?" He didn't laugh. Instead, he stepped closer, his breath visible in the cold night air. "You need to be careful. These people, they don't play games. If they catch you, they won't," I said, echoing his words from the diner, but my bravado felt thin. His eyes searched mine, and for a moment, I thought he might say something else, something real. But he just nodded and stepped back, leaving me colder than the night air. The more I worked with Liam, the more I saw the cracks in his armor. He was good at his job, too good, maybe, but there was a weight to him, a shadow that deepened every time we met. One night, after I'd passed him intel about a dirty cop in Midtown, he grabbed my wrist before I could walk away. "Why are you doing this?" he asked, his voice rough. "You could walk away, live your life. Why stay?" I could have lied, said it was for the thrill or the purpose he'd promised. But I didn't. "Because of you," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "You make me feel like I'm more than what I've been." His grip tightened, then softened. For a second, I thought he'd pull me closer, but he let go, his eyes stormy. "You don't know what you're saying," he muttered, but he didn't walk away. Not then. The next few weeks were a blur of late nights and close calls. I was getting better at the game, blending into crowds, catching snippets of conversations, slipping away before anyone noticed. But the deeper I went, the more I saw how broken the city was. Cops on the take, politicians bought and sold, lives ruined by people who thought they were above it all. It made me angry, but it also made me feel alive, like my murals weren't just art anymore. They were a fight. Liam was changing too. He was still guarded, still careful, but there were moments when the wall came down. One night, in a deserted parking lot, he told me about his brother, a kid who'd gotten caught up in the wrong crowd, dead at 19 from a deal gone bad. "That's why I'm doing this," he said, his voice raw, "to stop it from happening again, to make it mean something." I wanted to tell him it already meant something, to me at least. But before I could, he handed me a new assignment, a gala in Midtown, where the city's elite would be rubbing elbows. "You'll need to blend in," he said, tossing me a bag with a suit inside. "No paint stains this time." The gala was like stepping into another world. Crystal chandeliers, champagne flutes, people dripping in wealth. I felt like an imposter in my borrowed suit, but I played the part, mingling with the crowd, my sketchbook swapped for a notebook I passed off as a journalist's. I overheard enough to make my stomach turn. Deals to rig contracts, bribes to silence whistleblowers. I was so focused on listening that I didn't notice the man watching me from across the room. He was older, sharp-eyed, with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. When he approached, I froze. "You're new here," he said, his voice smooth but cold. "Who are you with?" I mumbled something about a freelance gig, my heart racing. He didn't buy it. "Careful, kid," he said, leaning closer. "This isn't a place for amateurs." He walked away, but I felt his eyes on me the rest of the night. I met Liam afterward, my hands shaking as I told him what happened. He cursed under his breath, his face pale. "You were seen," he said. "We need to lay low for a while. No more assignments until I figure this out." "But I can handle it," I protested, my voice rising. "I'm not some kid you need to protect." He grabbed my shoulders, his grip firm, but not cruel. "You don't get it, Ezra. These people will kill you without blinking. And I can't." He stopped, his voice breaking. I can't lose you. The words hung between us, heavy and raw. I wanted to kiss him, to close the distance that always seemed to linger. But before I could, he pulled back, his face a mask again. Go home, he said. I'll call you when it's safe. I didn't go home. I went to my mural spot and painted until dawn, pouring my fear, my anger, my want into every stroke. The figure in the uniform was clearer now. Liam, unmistakably, his eyes haunted but fierce. I was in too deep, and not just with the mission. I was falling for him, and it scared me more than any gala or shadowy figure ever could. Days passed without a word from Liam. The burner phone stayed silent, and the city felt emptier without our secret meetings. I kept painting, kept moving, but every shadow made me jump. Every stranger's glance felt like a threat. The man from the gala, his cold smile, his warning, haunted me. I'd poked a hornet's nest, and now I was waiting for the sting. I tried to go back to my old life, tagging walls, dodging cops who weren't Liam, scraping by on odd jobs. But it wasn't the same. The murals felt hollow without him there to see them, to call them a map of the city's soul. I missed his voice, his presence, the way he made me feel like I could be more than a dropout with a spray can. I was angry, at him for shutting me out, at myself for caring so much. Then, on the fifth night, the burner phone buzzed. Pier 17. Midnight. Come alone. My heart leapt, but there was a knot in my stomach. Something fell off. Still, I went, pulling on my jacket and slipping into the night. The pier was quiet, the Hudson River lapping at the docks, the city's lights glittering like a promise. Liam was there, leaning against a rusted railing, his face half-shadowed. He looked tired, older, like the weight he carried had doubled. You shouldn't be here, he said as I approached, but there was no bite in his voice, just worry. You called me. I shot back, stopping a few feet away. What's going on? Why the ghost act? He sighed, running a hand through his hair. They're watching me. Us. That guy at the gala. He's one of them. Victor Crane. Runs half the city's dirty money. He knows someone's sniffing around, and he's closing in. My stomach dropped. So what, we're done? You're just going to cut me loose. No, he said, his voice sharp. He stepped closer, close enough that I could see the strain in his eyes. I'm trying to keep you alive, Ezra. You don't know what these people are capable of. Then tell me. I snapped, my voice echoing over the water. You keep me in the dark, feed me scraps, expect me to risk everything without knowing why. I deserve better than that. He flinched, like I'd hit him. For a moment, neither of us spoke, the river's rhythm filling the silence. Then he said, quieter, you're right. You do. He looked away, his jaw tight. I didn't want you this deep. Not yet. But you're too good at this. Too good at seeing what others miss. I laughed, bitter. Yeah, and it's going to get me killed, right? Not if I can help it, he said, his voice fierce. He grabbed my hand, his grip warm and steady, and for a second I forgot how to breathe. I'm sorry, he said, for pulling you into this. For everything. I wanted to stay angry, but his touch unraveled me. Why me? I asked, my voice softer now. Out of everyone in this city, why pick me? He looked at me then, really looked like he was seeing me for the first time. Because you're not afraid to be yourself, he said, even when the world tells you to hide. I've spent my whole life hiding, Ezra, from my family, my job, myself. But you're out there, painting your truth on every wall. I admire that. I want that. My heart stuttered. He was talking about more than the mission now, and we both knew it. I stepped closer, close enough to feel the heat of him. You don't have to hide, I said, my voice barely a whisper. Not with me. For a moment, I thought he'd kiss me. His hand tightened on mine, his eyes searching my face. But then he pulled back, his expression shuddering. We can't, he said, his voice rough. Not now. Not until this is over. I wanted to argue, to pull him back, but the look in his eyes stopped me. He was scared. Not of Crane, not of the mission, but of us. Of what we could be. And that scared me, too. He gave me a new assignment that night. Smaller, safer, just watching a drop-off in Harlem. But as I left the pier, I felt the distance between us growing, not just physically, but emotionally. Liam was holding back, and I didn't know how to reach him. The next few days were a grind. I did what he asked, kept my head down, but the thrill was gone. Every time I passed him intel, I searched his face for a sign of the man who'd called me pretty boy, who'd held my hand by the river. But he was all business now, his walls higher than ever. Then came the night that changed everything. I was tailing a low-level dealer in the Bronx, just another job, when I saw him, Crane, the man from the gala. He wasn't supposed to be there. My pulse spiked, but I stayed hidden, watching as he handed a briefcase to the dealer, his cold smile glinting under a streetlight. I snapped a photo with the burner phone, my hand shaking, and sent it to Liam. The reply came instantly, "Get out." Now, but it was too late. A hand clamped on my shoulder, spinning me around. It was one of Crane's men, his grip like iron. "You're coming with me," he growled. I don't know how I got away. Adrenaline, maybe, or dumb luck. I ran, dodging through alleys, my heart pounding in my ears. When I finally stopped, gasping, in a deserted lot, I checked the burner phone. Another message from Liam. "Safe house. 23rd and 8th. Don't stop for anything." I made it to the safe house, a nondescript apartment with bare walls and a single cot. Liam was there, pacing, his face pale. When he saw me, he grabbed me, pulling me into a hug that stole my breath. "Thank God," he whispered, his voice breaking. "I thought I'd lost you." I clung to him, my fear melting into something else, something warm and desperate. "I'm okay," I said, but my voice shook. "I'm here." He pulled back, his hands on my face, his eyes searching mine. "You can't do that again," he said. "You can't risk yourself like that." "Then stop pushing me away," I said, my voice raw. "I'm in this, Liam. All the way. For you." For a moment, we just stood there, the world falling away. Then he kissed me, hard, urgent, like he'd been holding it back for years. And I kissed him back, pouring everything into it. My fear, my want, my hope. It was messy and perfect, and for the first time, I felt like we were on the same side. The kiss changed everything. It was like a dam breaking, all the tension and unspoken want between us spilling over. Liam's hands were still on my face, his breath ragged, and I could feel his heart pounding against mine. But as quickly as it started, he pulled back, his eyes wide with something like panic. "We can't do this," he said, stepping away, his voice hoarse. "Not now. Not like this." I grabbed his arm, not letting him retreat. "Why not?" I demanded, my voice shaking. "You feel it, Liam. I know you do. Why keep fighting it?" He looked at me, his expression torn. "Because this isn't just about us," he said. "If we slip up, if we get distracted, people get hurt. You get hurt. I can't let that happen." I wanted to argue, to tell him I didn't care about the risks, but the fear in his eyes stopped me. He wasn't just talking about Crane or the mission. He was talking about himself, about the life he'd built to keep his secrets locked away. I let go of his arm, but I didn't step back. "I'm not going anywhere," I said. "You don't get to decide this for me." He didn't answer, just nodded, his jaw tight. We spent the night in the safe house, planning our next move. Crane was closing in, and the photo I'd taken was our best lead yet. It showed a briefcase, likely stuffed with cash or worse, and Liam was certain it tied Crane to a network of dirty cops. But we needed more, proof that couldn't be ignored, something to bring him down for good. The next week was a blur of strategy and close calls. Liam kept me at arm's length, but I could feel him watching me, his eyes lingering when he thought I wasn't looking. We moved between safe houses, never staying in one place too long. I kept up my cover, slipping into bars and warehouses, but now I was more careful, my senses sharpened by the memory of Crane's man grabbing me. One night, Liam took me to a rooftop in Chelsea, the city sprawling below us like a living painting. He handed me a file, photos, documents, names. "This is everything we have on Crane," he said. "He's got half the precinct in his pocket, but there's a weak link, a cop named Delgado. If we can get to him, we can flip him." I flipped through the file, my stomach twisting. Delgado was young, barely older than me, with a rap sheet of his own. "You think he'll talk?" I asked. "If we play it right," Liam said. But it's risky. Crane's paranoid. One wrong move, and we're both dead. I nodded, my throat tight. Then we don't make any wrong moves. He looked at me, his expression softening. You're braver than I was at your age, he said. Hell, braver than I am now. I laughed, trying to lighten the mood. Yeah, well, I've got a good teacher. He smiled, a real one this time, and for a moment the weight lifted. We sat on the rooftop sharing a cheap coffee, talking about nothing, movies, music, the way the city looked at night. It was the closest we'd come to normal, and I clung to it, knowing it wouldn't last. The plan to get to Delgado was simple but dangerous. I'd pose as a courier, delivering a package to a drop-off point where Delgado was known to collect bribes. Liam would be nearby, ready to step in if things went south. We rehearsed it a dozen times, but when the night came, my nerves were electric. The drop-off was a seedy bar in Hell's Kitchen, packed with people who didn't ask questions. I walked in, the package, a dummy, filled with blank paper, tucked under my arm. Delgado was there, leaning against the bar, his eyes scanning the crowd. I made the drop, my heart pounding, and he gave me a nod, taking the package without a word. I slipped out, expecting Liam to meet me outside, but he wasn't there. Panic clawed at me. I texted the burner phone. Where are you? No response. I waited 10 minutes, then 20, my mind racing. Had Crane gotten to him? Was he hurt? I was about to head back to the safe house when a car pulled up, headlights blinding. Liam stepped out, his face grim. Get in, he said. I climbed in, my hands shaking. What the hell happened? I thought. Crane's men were there, he said, his voice tight. I had to circle back, make sure they didn't follow you. Relief flooded me, but it was short-lived. Liam's hands gripped the wheel, his knuckles white. Delgado's dirty, but he's scared, he said. He'll talk if we can get him alone. But Crane's tightening the net. We're running out of time. We drove to another safe house, this one in Queens, and spent the night poring over the plan. Delgado was our last shot, but getting to him meant going deeper into Crane's world. Liam was quieter than usual, his eyes distant. I wanted to reach for him, to pull him back to that moment on the rooftop, but I didn't. Not yet. The next day, we got word that Delgado was meeting Crane at a private club in Midtown. It was our chance. Liam rigged me with a wire, small, hidden under my jacket, and gave me a fake ID to get in as a waiter. Just listen, he said, his hand on my shoulder. Don't engage. In and out. I nodded, but my gut told me it wouldn't be that simple. The club was all velvet and low lights, the kind of place where power was traded like currency. I moved through the crowd, tray in hand, my eyes on Delgado and Crane. They were in a corner booth, their voices low but heated. I caught fragments, names, dates, a shipment coming in at the docks. My wire was picking it all up, but then Crane's eyes flicked to me, and I froze. He didn't say anything, just smiled that cold smile. But I knew he'd seen me before. I slipped out, my heart in my throat, and met Liam in an alley nearby. He knows, I said, my voice shaking. Crane. He recognized me. Liam cursed, pulling me close. We're done for now, he said. We've got enough to hurt him, but we need to move fast. Before he moves first. That night, in the safe house, I couldn't sleep. Liam was on the cot across the room, his breathing uneven. I wanted to go to him, to tell him everything I felt, but the fear of losing him, of losing this, kept me still. We were so close to breaking Crane, but I couldn't shake the feeling that we were breaking, too. The wire's recording was gold. Names, dates, a shipment of dirty money tied to Crane and his network. Liam said it was enough to bring to his contact, a federal agent working outside the precinct's reach. But Crane's recognition at the club changed everything. We weren't just hunters anymore. We were prey. Liam moved us to a new safe house, a rundown motel on the edge of Brooklyn, and told me to stay put. No more risks, he said, his voice hard. We wait for the feds. I hated waiting. The motel room smelled of stale smoke and regret, and the silence between us was worse. Liam was pulling away again, his walls back up, and it hurt more than I wanted to admit. I spent hours sketching, his face, his hands, the city that had brought us together and was now tearing us apart. On the third night, I couldn't take it anymore. I crossed the room, standing over his cot. "Talk to me," I said, my voice low. "Stop shutting me out." He sat up, his eyes tired but sharp. "I'm trying to keep you safe, Ezra. That's all I've ever wanted." "That's not all I want," I said, my voice breaking. "I'm not just your informant. I'm not just some kid you picked off the street. I'm here because I stopped, the words catching in my throat. "I love you." I couldn't say it, not yet, but it was there, burning in my chest. He stood, closing the distance between us. "You don't know what you're asking for," he said, but his voice was softer now, almost pleading. "My life, it's a mess. I've spent years hiding who I am, what I want. You deserve better than that." "I don't want better," I said, stepping closer. "I want you." For a moment, he didn't move, his eyes searching mine. Then he kissed me, slower this time, like he was memorizing every second. It wasn't just want, it was need, raw and unguarded. We fell onto the cot, tangled in each other, the world outside forgotten. For the first time, I felt like we were equals, like he wasn't holding back. But morning brought reality crashing down. The burner phone buzzed with a message from Liam's contact. "Feds moving in. Docks. Tonight." We had to act fast. The shipment was our chance to catch Crane in the act, to end this. But it meant going back into the fire. Liam laid out the plan. I'd stay on the sidelines, watching from a distance while he and the feds moved in. I hated it, but I agreed, knowing he wouldn't budge. That night, we drove to the docks, the air thick with tension. The shipment was due at 2 a.m., a cargo ship unloading crates that weren't on any manifest. I crouched behind a stack of containers, my heart pounding as Liam disappeared into the shadows with the feds. The docks were a maze of steel and salt air, the city's pulse muted by the lapping waves. I watched as Crane's men arrived, their movements sharp and practiced. Then I saw him, Crane himself, stepping out of a black SUV, his cold smile visible even in the dark. My hand shook as I texted Liam. "He's here." The raid was chaos. Shouts, gunfire, the screech of tires. I stayed hidden, my breath shallow, watching as the feds swarmed in. Liam was there, his gun drawn, moving with a precision that made my chest ache with pride and fear. Crane's men fought back, but they were outnumbered. I saw Delgado, cuffed and shouting, being dragged to a van. Then I saw Crane, slipping away, heading for the water's edge. I didn't think. I ran after him, my sneakers silent on the pavement. I wasn't armed, wasn't trained, but I couldn't let him escape. Not after everything. I caught up to him near a pier, his back to me, his phone pressed to his ear. "He's with me," he was saying, his voice low. "The kid. I'll handle it." My blood ran cold. He was talking about me. I backed away, but my foot hit a loose board, the sound sharp in the quiet. Crane turned, his eyes locking onto mine. "You," he said, his smile twisting. "You've been a pain in my ass." I bolted, but he was faster than he looked. He grabbed me, slamming me against a container, his hand on my throat. "Who are you working for?" he snarled. "The cop?" "The feds." I struggled, gasping, but before I could answer, a shot rang out. Crane staggered, his grip loosening, and I saw Liam behind him, his gun raised. "Let him go," Liam said, his voice deadly calm. Crane laughed, blood seeping through his shirt. "You think this ends with me?" he said. "You're in over your head, officer." He collapsed, and Liam was at my side in an instant, pulling me away. "Are you okay?" he asked, his hands checking me for injuries. I nodded, my throat too tight to speak. The feds swarmed in, securing the scene, but all I could see was Liam, his face pale, his eyes wild with fear. We drove back to the safe house in silence, the adrenaline fading into something heavier. Liam didn't let go of my hand the whole way. When we got inside, he pulled me close, his forehead against mine. "I thought I lost you," he whispered. "I can't do this without you." "You don't have to," I said, my voice steady for the first time in days. "I'm here." We didn't sleep that night. We talked, planned, held on to each other like the world might end if we let go. Crane was down, but he'd been right. This wasn't over. His network was bigger, deeper, and we'd only scratched the surface. But for the first time, I wasn't scared. Not with Liam beside me. Crane's arrest made headlines, but it didn't feel like a victory. The news called a major bust, a blow to organized crime, but Liam and I knew the truth. We'd only cut off one head of the Hydra. His network was still out there, and we were still targets. The feds took credit, kept our names out of it, but the danger lingered like a storm cloud over the city. We stayed in the safe house for days, waiting for the dust to settle. Liam was different now, less guarded, more open, like the raid had stripped away his last defenses. We spent hours talking, not just about the mission, but about us. He told me about his life before New York, growing up in a small Georgia town where being gay wasn't an option. I joined the force to prove something, he said one night, his head on my shoulder. To myself, to my dad, but it just trapped me more. I told him about Ohio, about the fights with my parents when I came out, about running to New York to find myself. I thought I'd be free here, I said, tracing the scar on his knuckles. But it's just a different kind of cage. He lifted my chin, his eyes soft. Not anymore, he said. Not with me. We kissed, slow and certain, and for the first time, it wasn't about fear or urgency. It was about us, about the future we could have if we survived this. I fell asleep in his arms, the city's hum a distant lullaby, and dreamed of a world where we didn't have to hide. But the world wasn't done with us. A week later, Liam's contact called. Delgado had flipped, spilling names and deals, but Crane's partners were moving fast to cover their tracks. We had one last shot, a meeting at a warehouse in Red Hook, where the remnants of Crane's network were regrouping. This is it, Liam said, his voice steady but his eyes worried. We end this, or they end us. The plan was simple. I go in as a lookout, feeding Liam and the feds intel from the outside. No heroics, no risks. But as I crouched in the shadows of Red Hook, watching men in suits move crates under floodlights, I knew it wouldn't be that easy. The burner phone buzzed. They know you're here. Get out. My heart stopped. I turned to run, but a figure stepped out of the dark. A woman, sharp-featured, with eyes like knives. You're the artist, she said, her voice cold. Crane warned us about you. I didn't have time to think. I ducked as she lunged, my instincts kicking in. I ran, weaving through the maze of crates, her footsteps close behind. I texted Liam, help, north side. Then I heard it shouts, gunfire, the chaos of another raid. I kept running, my lungs burning, until I slammed into someone. Liam. He pulled me behind a container, his gun drawn. Stay down, he whispered, his body shielding mine. The woman was gone, lost in the chaos, but the danger wasn't. The feds moved in, arresting Crane's partners, but Liam and I stayed hidden, waiting for the all-clear. When it was over, we stumbled out into the dawn, the city waking up around us. Liam's contact met us, his face grim but satisfied. It's done, he said. Enough evidence to bury them. You're clear. Clear. The word felt unreal. Liam took my hand, leading me away from the docks, and we walked until we reached a quiet park, the first light of morning painting the grass gold. We sat on a bench, the world still for the first time in months. What now? I asked, my voice small. I was scared to hear the answer, scared he'd pull away again. He turned to me, his eyes clear, unguarded. Now we live, he said. No more hiding. No more running. Just us. I laughed, tears stinging my eyes. You make it sound so easy. It won't be, he said, his hand finding mine. But it's worth it. You're worth it. We sat there as the city came alive, the weight of the past lifting with every passing minute. I thought of my murals, of the stories I'd painted on the city's walls. They'd always been about rebellion, about surviving. But now, they could be about something else. Hope, love, a future I hadn't dared to dream of. Months later, I stood in front of a new mural, this one legal, commissioned by a community center in Brooklyn. It was Liam and me, not as we were, but as we could be, two figures under a neon sky, holding hands, unafraid. He stood beside me, his arm around my shoulders, and for the first time, I felt free. The city had tested us, broken us, rebuilt us, We'd started with a whispered choice on a street corner, a spark that could have burned us down. But we'd chosen each other, over and over, through the danger and the fear. And in the end, that was enough.